Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are live on a Monday night on the NTV channel hosting the ILFL Soccer Night Show. I have a full complement of guests tonight. So many we don't have enough chairs, but the chairs we have filled gives you this. On my right, I have Statman Nanu in with me tonight. And to talk about all things Champions Cup, I have Jermaine right in from the Hackney and Leighton League. Good evening again, Jermaine.
Good evening again.
And to my left, I have the happy Stepney FC, who have managed to get themselves to the Interleague Champions Cup final. We're going to be talking to them in a little while about how they got there, why they got there, and what they're going to do when they get there. But in the first place, we have highlights of a league game that took part yesterday. Yes, we had Champions Cup, but this game had some significance. It was Hawk and Eagle against Beaumont, a team that came up this season against a team who could potentially go down. This was a game that Beaumont needed to get something out to retain their Premier Division status. Did they do it? Watch the highlights and see what happens. Here it is, Hawk and Eagle versus Beaumont. There it was, and in case you missed it, let me tell you what happened there. Hawk and Eagle turned up against a very confident Beaumont side, so confident that they didn't even have a full quota of players. They struggled, and Hawk and Eagle took advantage of that, and as a result, ended up beating Beaumont by 2-1. So what's the result of that? Well, in the studio tonight, we have Rashid Ali, who's going to tell us what that means for Beaumont right now. Good evening, Rash.
Morning, David.
How are you feeling, sir?
I'm feeling okay.
How are Beaumont feeling?
Well, very disappointed, to be honest, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. You deserve what you get. So starting games, even last Sunday started off with 9 men, and that's been the continuous pattern throughout the season. And obviously, you don't get the points, that's what happens. And I said for the last 3 months, we need to make sure we get sufficient points to survive. You didn't. Even if you had won, Western, the other results went
Rash, I have to
us.
ask the question. This is Beaumont Football Club.
Yeah, it's very
this is a name in the ILFL, and this is Beaumont Football Club who have been. How devastating for the club is this? What's the impact that this could potentially have?
There's been a huge impact. There's been a lot of changes. We already had a couple of meetings last week before. I'm not happy with a lot of the setup, the players, the attitude, the training, the turn up. There's a lot of issues we need to resolve, and in a way, I think that's a blessing in disguise. It'll give us something to accept and change and come back next season and look to solutions to the problem, because it's a problem, and I've realised it a few weeks back, and I was hoping that we don't get relegated, but the facts are we're not good enough in the Premiership, and that's what happens.
I remember last year Beaumont having a large celebration, in fact, to celebrate 25 years.
20 years, that's right, yeah.
Being involved in football locally and expanding and growing as a club. If I turn to my left, Stepney, you had something quite similar. I'm going to speak to you, Zah. You had something quite similar as well to celebrate exactly the same feats, but having so many years, 20 years.
24.
20 years, and so we're looking at two clubs that potentially have gone almost in different directions this season. You've played against Beaumont. You played against Beaumont for many, many years. How does it feel as another big club in the division, in the league, seeing a big club like Beaumont slip out the Premier Division?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shock to us, considering that Beaumont have been one of our closest rivals over the past 15, 20 years. They've always had good players. They've always had competitive games against one another. But I think they may have just found themselves in a situation with, player availability, key players not being available for matches. It's something that maybe we've suffered with at times, so I know exactly what they're going through. But to have that throughout the course of the season, can be crippling for any side. And unfortunately for them this season, they've paid the price.
Harry, you've just one second, Harry. You've been involved in the management of Stepney this season as well. You know how difficult it is as a manager sometimes to motivate players, make sure that they're always there, make sure they have the desire and the determination to be successful within a club. What's your take on the situation?
I think it's quite hard. I mean, it's quite hard to get a bunch of players regularly in a consistent manner, week in, week out. So I could understand. I mean, last year we had a lot of problem, but we managed to see it through, and thankfully, obviously, we won the title last year. This year, we had a similar problem. As Beaumont, getting the players, the consistent players, week in, week out, it's been hard. So for us, I mean, we've seen the effect. I mean, we're a few points off now, of the title. So I mean, for us, that's a shame. And I sympathise with Beaumont. Obviously, they didn't get the players in time. And it's cost them.
Now we've seen what's happened. I mean, Rash, like you said, it is what it is.
I was just going to add what it is. I think this year, as we discussed beginning of the season, the Premiership has been so competitive, so tough. In the previous years, you always had 2 or 3 teams that you could always get points of. I think this year, if you look at the teams, with the exception of Leytonstone, I think every game, there was no guarantee you're going to get points. I think, so in a way, I think it's a lesson to be learned from all the teams that Premiership is a tough place. You've got to be consistent on a weekly basis.
What also didn't help you, the fact is that West End got points out of this weekend as well.
And didn't see that one coming.
Completely scuppered you, didn't it? West End taking 3 points off Lotus.
West End, established club, obviously they're going for the similar phase, but they've managed to obviously just survive. You got Bromley again, similar going for this. But every team, every fixture, with the exception of Leytonstone, no team can say, you know what, next Sunday we've got 3 points. There's no guarantee. It was Stepney, London Tigers, Reach Out, Lotus. Every game is competitive, so Premiership is really, really tough, which is a good way for ILFL, for the Premiership.
It is indeed. There were 2 other league games that took place yesterday. Like we said, West End beating Lotus by 4 goals to 2, which effectively put an end to Lotus's chances of causing an upset at the top of the Premier Division and maybe even taking the title. And London Tigers banging 9 goals past Leytonstone. Okay, Leytonstone scored 3, but it was academic, really. It hardly made a difference. Those 9 goals that London Tigers scored, and more importantly, the 3 points that they gained, has now put them within touching distance of reclaiming the title back from Stepney. Zah, I heard Harry touching it just very quickly about the fact that it's, you know, it's almost slipping out of reach for the players. Is that a chance missed?
I think, again, you know...
You're the champions. It was yours to retain and hold.
Absolutely. I mean, as champions, you know, the following season, you want to go in and you want to try and retain, you know, that momentum and try and win the league again. Trying to win it back-to-back is always going to be difficult. I mean, again, this season, we struggled, you know, in terms of numbers and players and key players as well. You know, Mustafa, who's been one of our leading goal scorers over the past few seasons, you know, he's been out for the majority of this season. We've had issues in goal. We've got 2 goalkeepers. You know, we've had, on occasion, both keepers not being available due to suspension or other commitments. And I found myself going in goal. It's not an ideal situation. And like you say, in the Premier League, you can't go into games under-equipped. And we found ourselves in that position a number of times. But in saying that, we're not too far off either. You know, it's just the fine lines in these games whereby, you know, if we had a goalkeeper, if we had our top goal scorer, if we had our players, all our players on the pitch at the same time, we probably would have turned some of those, I don't know, defeats into victories or defeats into draws and draws into victories.
In a nutshell, in a word, was the Premier Division tougher this season?
I'd say in terms of it being tougher, it's been harder for us based on the fact that we've been missing a number of players. Yeah, there's some good sides in that Premier Division. You know, the sides that we have beaten in the past. You know, we've won the league, I think, 7 times. But in saying all of that, again, it's always going to be tough in the Premier Division, and we've suffered this year just purely because we've struggled to get our regular players turning up on the pitch on a consistent basis.
Let's turn negatives into a positive, because what Stepney did do is they beat another champion side from the Hackney and Leyton League in Mile End. We're going to talk about that game and what the impact of that will be once we come back after this short break. Stick around, we'll see you next on the ILFL Soccer Night Show.